Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition Jackrabbit Illustrated podcast. I'm Dallas. Thanks for joining here. I tell you what, I am so unbelievably excited for the game this weekend. We got the Beef Bowl. We got it is the biggest FCS game of the year coming up week 2, Montana State coming into Brookings. I don't know that I've ever been this excited for a regular season game. I can't wait. So that's why we have our guest on today. Excited to talk about the game coming up. Reminder quick, it's a blackout game. So wear black. I know I've posted a bunch of stuff. We all have. Again, I get school colors are blue. You can look to Montana State. They did the Color Rush game last weekend, which was one of the coolest things. They do an awesome job with that. Look at any of the big boys. Support your team. Wear black to the game. Real quick, before we get into an intro, I'm going to kick it over to Chad, who's joining me.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to start off by thanking our sponsors. This year's title sponsors are the Kubota Dealers of South Dakota. See them for all your medium, heavy, and lightweight equipment needs. Also, Jackrabbit Central, the best place to get your blackout gear is Jackrabbit Central or jackrabbitcentral.com. Today, we have 25% off because we scored so many touchdowns. It's Touchdown Tuesday. Be sure to stop in or go online to take advantage of that. We also have Culver's of Brookings and Watertown, the best place to get your cheese curds. Keaton, how you doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. Ready to go. It's a good week. Football season's here.
Yeah, that Gold Rush is pretty cool. I'm glad you pointed that out, Dallas. Thanks for bringing that up.
I was out there.
07, yeah.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, I was out there a few years ago, and I can't wait to go back in 2 years. Absolutely love Bozeman. And again, the Gold Rush was, you guys do it right. Just pregame atmosphere. What a cool place to watch a game. And I guess as we introduce here, so Keaton is new play-by-play voice of the Bobcats for both football and men's basketball. And correct me if I'm wrong here anywhere. Coming from Michigan State, did women's basketball prior to this?
Yep. So second year with Montana State, did 10 years in Michigan State with their women's hoops, and worked 13 years in minor league baseball.
Nice. And sorry, and not to totally derail this, but did I see Northwoods League?
Yes. My first job out of college, 2 weeks after I graduated, I was with the Green Bay Bullfrogs in the Northwoods League, and they're now the Green Bay Booyah. So yeah, that was.
So if you can see my hat, I'm in Mankato, and we have the Moondogs. So
yes.
So
I was
I was
in the other division, so we didn't get to travel up there, but yeah, very familiar with the Northwoods League. It's a great league, man.
Yep.
Did you get a chance to meet Tyler? He also got his start in baseball a little bit. So.
I did. Yeah, I got to meet him a little last year. Yeah, good dude. Won the broadcaster award last year. He had my vote. Yeah, really, really good dude. Love his work.
Great. Cool. So being relatively new to the position, so I'm curious, just kind of some early impressions as you see getting introduced to the team last year versus this year. What are your first takeaways?
They're really building a system. Brent Vegan is very much a CEO. He's very even-keeled, level-headed, very focused, really delegates a lot of his tasks. And this is a Montana State roster that's built with Montana kids. There's obviously, I think there's 19 kids from California on the team, plenty of other states. Nice pipeline from Texas has been coming up. But for the most part, almost 50 guys on this roster are from the state of Montana. And it's interesting the way they build this roster, because not only do they bring in a lot of Montana kids, but, they recruit everybody. So even if you are a star quarterback at one place, you can come here and be a star lineman, like Troy Anderson, who just signed the big deal with the Falcons. Like, he was a quarterback when he came here. He played quarterback at Montana State and switched over to linebackers. So I've been really impressed with just how truly Montana built the Montana State program is, especially compared to what you see at some of the higher levels. And when you have a new coach come in, it wasn't like he just dipped into the transfer portal and started something new. He's out there recruiting the state of Montana, because this is Montana State. There's a lot of kids out there, a lot of people out there that their parents were Montana State fans. They were Montana State fans, and this is it. This is where they want to come play. Wyoming, Colorado, all those places, those are the nearest FBS. Those are hours and hours away. Montana State's the place to be if you're in Montana.
So it's funny you kind of bring up those last couple points, because there's something about Vegan, about that staff, that program, that really reminds me of Stig and the way that things were built here at South Dakota State and in Brookings, right? What did you said? CEO, delegates, level-headed, right? Like, just all of those things that check so many boxes of how Stig built the program that he built. So I think that's why I'm so excited. Like, I love this developing fledgling rivalry, right? Like we're not the Grizz, you guys aren't the furry cows from Fargo, but it still is like it still is. This is developing into a fun, I don't know, just a fun atmosphere, fun rivalry.
Yeah, no doubt. And our athletic director, Leon Costello, had been over at South Dakota State before, and that was part of it. And the fact that both these teams have been so good, like obviously this home and home was already built in before we saw the way this played out over the last 2 years in the semifinals. So yeah, this is great. I love this type of national outer conference rivalry. And it seems like it's been good. I mean, a lot of the fans we met last year, even after the tough loss, they were very cordial and very respectful. And there's it's a good vibe, and it doesn't have the same vitriol that I'm sure you guys have with your team and we have with the team over the hill.
Yeah, I mean, NDSU, we get along with them pretty well, but, we were tired of being second fiddle to them for so long. And so that does get old. It does help that we, beat them handedly in the national championship this year, this last season, I should say. And what do you maybe let's talk a little bit more about the game. What do you see that MSU might want to do different outside of what happened last game and taking the elements away? Because I mean, there's some people that said the elements were a big factor, and I think that's probably true somewhat because of the style of running that Chambers and Malott have.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it definitely was a factor. I mean, there was one draw where Tommy Malott slipped as he just planted in the backfield to go forward, and now he's a step behind. But it is what it is, and I don't think that's the reason Montana State lost. The other thing I'm really excited about is Sean Chambers to play a whole game. Obviously, two very lopsided losses against the last two Dakota State schools in the championship game and the semifinals. And I don't know that they would have won either of those games, but the score would have definitely been different if Sean Chambers gets to play the whole game and if Tommy Malott plays the whole game in the national championship. So that kind of stunk to not really see the full thing because, the coaching staff does a nice job of their creativity. They do a lot of different things with those two guys. They utilize them to their full ability. And when Chambers went out, that was half the playbook, and that stinks. And so you want to be at full strength, and they will be. Everybody's ready to go for that. So I think that's going to be really, really fun about it. But I think the coolest thing about this matchup is how many guys are returning on both sides, because whoever wins, there's no excuse. There's no, oh, we were young. Oh, they're going to be different. No. Both these teams are locked and loaded. Both these teams are very experienced. Yes, Montana State has a few new guys here and there, a couple different changes and rotations, but for the most part, whoever wins this game, they're going to be familiar with this rivalry. They're going to be familiar with this game. And so it is just straight up, line them up, let's go to work, and it's going to be a true chess match.
So going back to the Malott Chambers thing, and yes, and trust me, and we understand what that's like, having to compete in a big game without having somebody that you expected to be there and counted on. And I want to back this up and make sure that Jacks fans understand, maybe if there's some casual people watching or listening, that, the score of that game ended up very lopsided. This is an unbelievably talented football team. Things didn't shake out that game. And I think a lot of it did get pointed at the conditions that affects both teams. To me, the fact that Chambers went out, that changes the way that you approach a game so much when you have that kind of, 1-2 punch and you scheme, to have a player of that caliber there. So that brings me to, I think, my next question. I was just curious, as the season rolls out, maybe not this game in particular, but how are they going to manage kind of the Malott Chambers, back and forth?
Yeah, totally. So, Tommy Malott's the starter, and Sean Chambers is kind of the second quarterback. Chambers is a little bit more of your kind of red zone quarterback, because I know really before he transferred over here, one of the issues they had was closing in the red zone, scoring in the red zone. And we saw that when Chambers was out, because he was out for a period of time last year. Montana State trying to convert those red zone opportunities into touchdowns. So he was the big portion of that, because now you can dial him up, and Malott's at his best in space, and Chambers is at his best between the tackles. He's just so big. So there's that. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is when they start playing them together, that's when you can be really, really creative. And we're going to see some different things. If you want to go back and watch, say our Brawl the Wild game against Montana, we saw them use a lot of creativity in that game, and we were going to see more of that in the South Dakota State game. And so sometimes that's Malott lining up as running back. Sometimes that's Malott even lining up as a wide receiver. Because remember, when he first got here, he was running special teams. That year, that run to the semifinals where he ended up as the quarterback to win that game against South Dakota State. Like, he started that year on special teams, so he can do a lot of different things, and it's going to be a lot of different types of creativity. There was one play last year as well in the playoffs against Weber State where it was a double reverse. Sean Chambers ends up with the ball in his hand, so it went from Malott to one of the wide receivers to Chambers, and from the left numbers he threw to the right pylon near the end zone and completed like a 40-yard touchdown pass on a ball that probably traveled like 70 yards in the air. So he's got some serious arm strength, and it's that type of creativity that's on film already that we're going to see. And there's going to definitely be some more wrinkles because this is an offense all about using these guys creatively. And that's the type of stuff we're going to see. It's just in and out, and they're just both so athletic in a different way. Malott's a little bit quicker, a little bit more one-on-one in space, and Chambers a little bit more of your bruising, kind of close the drive in the red zone type guy.
In watching your guys' game from last week, I saw that we had kind of an unexpected addition at running back. Can you talk a little bit how much the depth with the new guy, Scott Humphrey, coming on, and how great he looked at? Can you talk a little bit about that so we have a little better idea, Jack fans have a little better idea what to expect from that new running back, I guess?
Yeah, totally. So true freshman coming over from the Seattle area. Right now that running back room is at about 4 guys. So Lane Sumner, who started number 1 last week, he did get hurt in that game. This is all out in the press conference, but he got hurt in that game and won't be able to play on Saturday. So that moves Julius Davis, the one of the newer running backs as well, the transfer from Wisconsin to the 1 spot. Scott Humphrey is going to be the number 2 spot as the true freshman. And then from there, Jared White scored 2 touchdowns. He's a redshirt freshman and only played in his 3rd collegiate game in that first one. And then Elijah Elliott, the leading returning running back and rusher from a year ago. But Scott Humphrey, man, that kid is big for coming out of high school, and he delivers a blow. There's one that that's just burned in my brain already, where a defensive back kind of slipped into the backfield, caught him about 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and Humphrey was the guy who delivered the blow. And this isn't cliche. I mean, you could see him lower his shoulder and put that man on his back 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, turns into a 2 or 3 yard gain. But he's a bruiser. He's got that bowling ball type vibe, and he's coming from a high school, Rainier Beach High School, where they run the damn ball. They play in bad weather. They play in that rainy weather. They run the football. They play hard-nosed, blue-collar football. And so he is just that kind of big, hardy, blue-collar type guy. And he's got the high-end speed, no doubt. And it was only 1 game, so he's still going to be relying a little on his athleticism, his skill, his strength, and he will hone his vision on hitting holes here and hitting holes there. But, that was pretty impressive. And it certainly 3 touchdowns is a surprise, but it's not a surprise that he had a great game because the coaching staff has been talking about him since fall camp.
Sure.
So that again kind of reinforces for any Jacks fans that don't get a shot to watch Montana State on not on a weekly basis, but at least check in and kind of keep an eye. This is a fun team to watch. You talk about kids that know how to hit, know how to run the ball. I really like this style of offense and what they do. So, Keaton, you kind of touched on it already, but I did want to ask just about surprise takeaways from the Utah Tech game. Anything else that you haven't covered yet, maybe that jumped out at you?
Yeah, I mean, Scott Humphrey was definitely the big story. I think the nickelback play was a big thing. So Lavelle Price Jr. is a 6th-year senior from LA, and then there's a sophomore in Caden Dowler. And so they kind of interchanged each other. Lavelle Price is a little bit of a smaller guy, a little under 6 feet, so he doesn't have the same size. But again, he's waited his turn for 5 years to get this opportunity, made a couple of big plays. He was the leading tackler for Montana State in that first game. So I thought he played really, really well, particularly in the red zone. And then Caden Dowler, who's a little bit bigger, a little over 6 foot. Like 220-ish in terms of his weight. So he's a heavy guy. He's got a lot of strength for only a true sophomore. And he had an interception and nearly picked off another pass. So I thought that nickelback play was pretty good. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that kind of steps up because, with the size that South Dakota State has, obviously between their tight ends, the fullbacks, and the running backs, and the way they can kind of match up with that linebacker core, especially when we run the nickel 100% of the time, that's a really, really tough matchup, I think, for Montana State when you have a tight end trying to block a nickelback, and that can be really, really tough. So I thought they played pretty well. We're going to see both of those guys in this game and kind of as the season progresses, but I think that'll be one thing that's a really big key, and I thought they played pretty well, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think we'll take just a couple questions from the gallery here, if you don't mind. We'll just kind of quick shoot them here. Josh Hoffman says the kicker's really a big deal, right?
Literally.
Big dude. So good question. To follow that up, Jim Poppin asks, what's the one thing that you think MSU has to do to win this week, and maybe one thing that they can't do?
Yeah, one thing they're going to have to do for sure is, they don't have to totally win the line of scrimmage because, man, that size, especially on your offensive line with those two All-Americans sitting on the left tackle, left guard, it's pretty hardy. But you can't get blown off the line of scrimmage. You got to touch Isaiah Davis around the line of scrimmage at least. You can't let him get 5-6 yards deep, and that's the first time he has to even make a cut. So you're going to need to see a little bit of that. The other thing that Montana State can't do is turn the ball over, specifically interceptions. Montana State really takes care of the ball extremely well, but y'all got some ball hawks. I mean, I watched you guys take two interceptions back for a touchdown, 3 INTs yet already last week, leading the nation in that category. Like, you know how to go grab the football, and Montana State's going to try to throw the football because one of the keys in that 2021 semifinal game was Lance McCutcheon downfield. Cleveland Thomas and Willie Patterson both made some really nice catches down the sideline. 2 great tight ends as well, and Snell and Pickering for Montana State. They can get a little space in the middle, and that could be something there. But Montana State doesn't turn the ball over a ton. You guys do force a lot of turnovers. So as long as Montana State doesn't throw too many interceptions, or even really 1 or 2, that I think will be a difference because hopefully this game's coming down to a single possession or 2.
Yeah, I have one other kind of out of left field question. I don't know how much you follow the sports scene there in Montana. I figure quite well. So what can you tell me about Avery Allen?
Not a ton. I don't really.
You're not a wrestling guy.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm a Chicago kid. I'm a city kid. Wrestling's a little bit out of my known.
Fair enough. He's a pretty good athlete coming to SDSU to wrestle from your area. So
bringing in somebody we're excited about. All right. Well, since Jim Poppin, thanks, Jim, stole my closing question. Chad, do you got anything else you want to chat about, or Keaton? Is there anything that we've missed here?
What do I have to do to be able to auction and buy some premier cattle at this game, at this beef bowl?
That's right. You know what? I don't know. I bet we can get you on a list if we try really hard. You got to get there. Got to make sure you get there early enough. Because we used to, back in the day anyway, used to actually parade the cattle out on the field. And there's a famous story about a player turning an ankle and not being able to score because he stepped where a cow stepped on the field. But I think we can probably help you out with that. We will see.
Good to know. I did have one other question for you guys too.
Yeah.
But look, you guys are great. I don't know who's going to win this game. If by some chance Montana State were to win this game, are the voters going to put us over NDSU? We felt a little cheated not getting a home game in the semifinals. I know some people around here say no matter what, even if Montana State wins, NDSU is going to be number 1. Maybe you don't want to think about that, but would the voters think that? People here are a little pessimistic about it.
My answer to that is there's already people that have you over at NDSU. So I would think there's no reason you shouldn't be, depending on what their game looks like, because they won in NDSU fashion, but it didn't look flashy last week. So there's a lot of people that are wavering on how quality that team is when they're, the same thing they've been forever.
Right.
Dallas.
Well, there's one relatively well-known writer that already put NDSU over us over beating a 3-8 last year team. We'll go ahead and move on from that one.
I really just want to know if in my open of the pregame show, can I say number 1 in the nation is on the line?
I think that's fair.
That's fair.
Okay. I think anybody that understands FCS football knows that this is probably the two. Oh my God, I'm going to make a bulletin board. This is probably the 2 teams that are going to face off in January, right?
That.
I mean, it's
be great.
And it's weird. It's so bizarre because we are not an arrogant fan base, and it feels really uncomfortable to be favored this much all year. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to say it because right. Like if you look at it, we should win every game by 2 scores at least. Like you should, and that's all there is to it. And that is in no way arrogant. It is just who we have back,
and especially with all the home games. I mean, you got Northern Iowa at home. You've got NDSU at home. We're coming to your place. You got home games.
Yeah. Well, for the record, we all picked that UNI game as a loss for us. So
yeah, Northern Iowa on Hobo Day homecoming is not great for us, but
no.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we're ready to wrap here. Keaton, thank you so much for hanging out tonight and chatting. Excited to learn more about your squad, and just I can't wait for this game this weekend.
Totally. It's going to be a lot of fun. Great day for football, baby, no matter what happens.
Yes, it is. All right, sure. Chad, I think we're done. Go big, go blue.
Go Jacks.
Go Jacks.
Go Cats.